Hello everyone, welcome back to this channel. In this video, we are going to talk about H-index of an author. H-index of an author is primarily a metric that measures the productivity of the author's research by accounting for the number of citations received by author's publications. This metric was proposed by a physicist named George E. Hersh in 2005, and because of the surname which Professor Hersh has got, the metric was called H-index. This was proposed as a tool to determine the relative quality of scientists, and it was designed to balance the quantity of paper with the quality or the citations that the papers receive. The formal definition of H-index is that it is the largest value such that the researcher has published at least H papers that have been cited at least H number of times. Now, what do we mean by this is easy to see through this example which is taken here. Suppose there is an author who has got 10 publications, and each publication has got the number of citations which are written in the second column here. So that means the first publication has got 100 citations, the second publication has got 78 citations, third has got 62 citations, and so on. Now, to determine the H-index of this author, we arrange the number of citations in the descending order like this, and then we evaluate what is the largest value of H such that H papers have at least H number of citations. So let's see whether the index can be 1 or not. Is there one paper with at least one citation? Yes, there is one. There are so many. All of them have at least one citation, in fact. Are there 2 papers with 2 citations? Yes. Are there 3 papers with at least 3 citations? Yes. 4 with at least 4 citations? Yes again. 5 with at least 5 citations? Yes. 6 with at least 6 citations? Yes again. But are there 7 papers with at least 7 citations? No, because the 7th paper has got 3 citations. So only the largest value is to be taken such that H papers have been cited at least H number of times. So we see that the largest value is 6 here, because 6 papers have been cited at least 6 times, and that's the reason that the number H-index for this particular author becomes 6. That's the metric, H-index metric for the author who has got these publications having these number of citations. So that's how we calculate H-index. Let's have a look at some more examples. Suppose there is an author who has got 5 publications and the number of citations are respectively, the first publication has got 5 citations, the second has no citation, 0 citation, 2 citations for the third publication, 0 for the fourth, and 2 again for the fifth citation, fifth publication. So can the author A have 1 as the H-index? Yes. Is there one paper with at least 1 citation? Yes, of course. In fact, there are 2 papers with 2 citations, so 1 is satisfied. Now let's move to 2. Are there 2 papers with at least 2 citations? Yes, there are 2 papers with at least 2 citations. So let's move again. Check for 3 now. Are there 3 papers with at least 3 citations? 3 papers with at least 3? No, because these papers have less than 3. The last 4, publication number 2, 3, 4 and 5 have less than 3 citations. Only publication 1 has more than 3 citations. So we do not have 3 papers with at least 3 citations. Hence the highest value H which satisfies that H papers have at least H citations happens to be 2 for author A, and hence the H-index for author A becomes 2. Similarly, let's have a look at author B who has got 10 publications with these many number of citations. Publication 1 having 6 citations, publication 2 having 1 citation, and so on. So let's check for 1. Is there one paper with at least 1 citation? Yes. Are there 2 papers with at least 2 citations? Yes. Are there 3 papers with at least 3 citations? Yes, because 6, 5 and this 3, they satisfy. Are there 4 papers with at least 4 citations? At least 4? only is qualified by publication number 1 and publication number 4. So we do not have 4 papers with at least 4 citations. So our H index for author B happens to be 3 according to the definition of H index. So that's how we calculate H index. We look at all the citations which various publications for that specific author have got. Then we look at the highest number H such that H papers have at least H citations, and that highest number, that highest value H is called the H index of that specific author. Now these indices, particularly H index, has got various challenges and limitations because it does not account for field specific differences or disciplinary bias, because we know that applied sciences have a natural tendency of receiving more citations because it has a larger target audience. More people read applied stuff, they find it more relevant as compared to pure science, and hence applied papers have a tendency of receiving more citations naturally. But this H index does not account for those differences. The field specific differences are not accounted for by this metric definition, H index. Also, we cannot use this metric to compare authors who are at different stages of their careers, because obviously any author who is an experienced author is going to have more citations, because H index is going to grow as citations accumulate. So it depends on the academic age of the researcher. So if somebody is more experienced, that person will obviously have an H index which is higher in comparison to the early stage authors. So that creates another sense of biasedness with respect to comparison of quality of work. You cannot compare authors who are at different stages of their careers using this metric. Also, there is susceptibility to manipulation through self-citations or cross-citations. For example, suppose somebody is my friend, I may cite him, he may cite me. So this, help citations, you can say, or self-citations are not accounted for, because any kind of citation is treated as a citation. The quality of citation is also not considered into account. It's just a citation. The number of citations is what is taken into account while the H index is calculated. Also, there's a great variation in the H index of the same author if we consider different databases, because ultimately we are looking at the number of citations which the various publications are receiving. So citations and those publications are listed in various databases. So different databases like Scopus, Web of Science, or Google Scholar, they will give different H index of the same author because they account for different number of citations, like that. All right. Also, one more limitation which is not written here is that it doesn't even account for the number of authors in the paper. For instance, suppose my paper has got 10 more authors and there is one more scholar who has got, say, there are 2 authors only, and they have received, let's say, 10 citations that particular paper, and I've got, say, 10 authors with 15 citations received for that particular paper. So that number of authors or co-authorship is not accounted for. In the original paper, when Hirsch had suggested this H index, he had suggested partitioning citations among co-authors, and then he had also introduced something called fractional H index, and many variants also came later on, like G index, fractional H index, but they are not widely used. So this partitioning of citations is not followed in the research community right now. So H index has various shortcomings. To measure the productivity of a researcher, there are limitations. So one has to be very careful while comparing authors with respect to their productivity in research using a metric like H index. There is a very interesting animated video on the Schoolcom lab channel on YouTube which explains H index and its limitations in a very creative look. And a very interesting designing has been done. So let's have a quick look at that video also.
The academic world is competitive. Researchers compete for jobs, funding, prizes, and awards to advance their careers. Dr. Mariam Hashemi is a postdoctoral researcher from Iran. She works in biotechnology and is currently looking for a faculty position in a biology department at a Canadian university. Mariam has been working hard to advance her career. She spends endless hours in the lab to conduct experiments and collect data for her research. When she is not in the lab, she is on her computer analyzing results and writing up findings for conference papers and journal articles. Mariam is determined to reach her goal of becoming a professor in Canada, but she knows that the competition is strong. While putting together her application material, she realized that the H-index is often used in hiring and promotion. The H-index is a quantitative indicator based on a researcher's number of publications and citations. The more you publish and get cited, the higher your H-index. Mariam's postdoctoral supervisor explained that people use the H-index to characterize the scientific output of a researcher. The H-index was created by physicist Jorge Hirsch, who wanted to create a measure that combined research productivity and impact. A scientist has index H if H of his or her number of papers have at least H citations each, and the other papers have less than or equal to H citations each. Mathematically, the H-index is simple to compute by ranking publications by the number of citations they received. You can look up an author's H-index in many citation databases such as Google Scholar, Scopus, or Web of Science. Mariam has 5 peer-reviewed publications so far, and one of them has been cited 291 times. She is very proud of it because it's her first authored journal article, and it was published in a very important journal in her field. Mariam has 4 other papers. One was cited 12 times, another was cited once, and the other 2 were just published and have not been cited yet. Since she has 2 publications that received at least 2 citations each, her H-index is 2. Mariam worries that her H-index is too low to look good in her job application. Though the quantification and oversimplification of research evaluation have created pressure to publish, Mariam knows her low H-index does not reflect her success as a scientist. Though a work's number of citations does not necessarily indicate its quality, Mariam believes her highly cited paper reflects that her research has been influential. She looks for other metrics to include in her faculty application and supplements her publication record with qualitative descriptions to contextualize the importance of her work. Since the H-index depends on the number of publications and citations, senior researchers who have been active for longer periods of time have the advantage of being able to accumulate more publications and citations over time. Therefore, they usually have higher H-indexes than their junior colleagues. For this reason, the H-index should never be used to assess early career researchers or to compare authors who are at different stages in their careers. Different fields have different publication practices and authorship protocols. Since the H-index does not account for these field-specific differences, it should never be used to compare researchers from different disciplines. For instance, Dr. George Clark is a full professor in an English department at a university in the UK. He has been doing research on English literature for more than 30 years. George is currently applying for his university's Researcher of the Year award. This award is a prestigious prize that comes with £10,000 of research funding. George has authored over 60 publications, most of which are monographs, edited books, or book reviews. However, George is not cited very much. For these reasons, he has an H-index of 5. George is worried he won't have a good chance of winning the award because he heard that the H-index is taken into account. He looked up the engineering professor who received the research award last year and found out that his H-index was 45. While fields such as engineering often include several, sometimes dozens of authors on a publication, authors in English literature tend to work alone. The length of reference lists, and thus the average number of citations per article, also varies between disciplines. Additionally, the extent to which researchers publish in journals rather than books or conference proceedings differs from one discipline to another. All these publication practices affect the average number of publications per author and citations per paper. This causes H-indexes to vary significantly between fields, so authors from different fields should not be compared using the H-index. George?
So this is a complete video you can watch on Squalcomm Lab channel. It's a very interesting video, but I think the spirit is clear to everybody. I hope the idea of H-index, why and by whom it was introduced, and various limitations that it has got is clear through this. That's all about this video. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you.